Great to have you with us. Please like, subscribe, and share. We're going to switch gears. Let's talk about the story that will not die. And that is Abrego Garcia, as the media affectionately calls him, the Maryland dad, who is actually an illegal alien, who is actually a member of MS-13, who has now been implicated in child trafficking, who has 2 deportation orders. And now the Democrats are literally going to break their back, bending backwards to get this person back to the United States, which will never happen because the Trump administration will simply, if Bukele ever releases him, they will bring him back here. They will immediately incarcerate him and they will redeport him somewhere else. But that's what they're actually going to stand with this person and people like him. Check this out.
This country who is affiliated with MS-13.
There is no evidence to that.
Let's set the record straight about who this person is.
There is no evidence that he was a gang member.
With all due respect, if the Department of Justice has come out and said that he has gang affiliations, just like the same man who killed Rachel Morin had gang affiliations. So you would have told me before Rachel Morin's death, you would have defended that man and said he had no gang affiliations, and he went on to kill Rachel Morin. So instead of defending this gentleman, talk about who he actually is and talk about the risk in keeping illegal criminals in this country. This is exactly what President Trump was elected to do, to return these people back to their home countries, and that's what he did.
We're not defending him. I'm going to reiterate that is unsubstantiated. There is no evidence of him being a gang member.
There's absolute evidence. Stephen Miller has talked about it. Pam Bondi has talked about it, that they have established he is a member of MS-13. He has gang ties. He is now implicated in human trafficking. And oh, by the way, the reason that previously a judge had a withhold order on him saying he could not be deported to El Salvador was because Abrego Garcia argued that he was in fear for his life from a rival gang. You can't not be a gang member if you're in fear of your life from a rival gang. You don't have a rival gang if you're not in a gang to begin with. So the fact that this media talking head propagandist, the establishment is doing everything they can to keep these criminals in the country when the vast majority of Americans want them gone.
He is married to a U.S. citizen, and he was in this country legally. Okay, but we don't know if he was
Being married does not make you not a gang member.
There's no evidence. We're going to move on. There's no evidence that he was a gang member, and I want to reiterate that to our viewers.
The Department of Justice came out and said there was credible evidence that he was a member or affiliated with MS-13.
You said he's a gang member, and he wasn't legally allowed to be here, which, again, he was legally allowed to be here. And he is married to an American citizen.
You can hold court for him all you want. He's no longer in this country.
All right.
The Americans are safer because of it.
And to go back to...
He is not legally allowed to be here. He is still, even if he was not a gang member, he is still an illegal alien. He has no legal standing to stay here. This is what they're doing. They are going to argue till they're blue in the face, as illogical as it may get, that they want these people here. Why? Because they want their voting bloc. They want their controlled masses that they can vote for. This is absolutely unconscionable. And they want all the money that comes with them. Remember, they were spending billions and billions and billions of dollars through NGOs to bring and keep these people here. And every single Democrat politician, I use that tongue in cheek, a huge number of Democrat politicians were grifting off of all that money. So they don't want the gravy train to go away. They don't want their captive voting bloc to go away. This is what they're actively trying for every single time. Now, Stephen Miller, in direct contravention of this establishment propaganda talking head, talks about the fact of the evidence against Abrego Garcia, the quote-unquote Maryland dad. Here we go.
Received in our lives as much positive press
I know.
as this MS-13 gang member has received. We couldn't get headlines like that if our lives depended on it.
Yeah.
So let's just go over the facts here. He is an illegal alien. Fact 1, what do you do with illegal aliens? You deport them. Fact 2, he's an MS-13. What do you do with illegal aliens who are also in a transnational terrorist organization? You deport them more quickly. Oh, and on top of that, he's implicated in human trafficking. Deport, deport, deport. This is who they're going to bat for. What are we supposed to do? Buy the guy a house, get him some free health care?
Yeah.
Maybe let him run for Congress?
Yeah.
I mean,
yeah. You're supposed to do all of those things.
I mean, this is the Democrat Party. This is who they stand for. This is who Cory Booker stands for in 2025. They stand for illegal alien predators that are in transnational cartels. That's the Democrat Party of today. We will win this fight all day, every day.
I love what he said. This is who the Democrat Party is. They are for criminal, illegal migrants who are part of transnational terrorist gangs. That's who Hakeem Jeffries supports. That's who Cory Booker supports. That's who Ilhan Omar supports. That is Bernie Sanders. That is AOC. That is the senator that we're going to check in for a minute now, because we actually have a senator talking about it. He is going to go down to El Salvador and demand this person's release. This is absolutely amazing. The grift has ended with the Hispanics, with the union members, and with a very large number of the black voting population. They need somebody else that they can rip off. Now, check out this. We highlighted this senator in the video we did a couple days ago, but now he's talking more about him going down to El Salvador and going to get entrance to this prison. But Bukele hasn't called him back. I hope Bukele never calls him back.
Senator Van Hollen. Senator, thank you for your time. You requested this meeting with President Bukele while he's in D.C. Is a meeting set? Have you heard back?
Kate, it's good to be with you. I did request it. I've not heard back from the president of El Salvador.
Why should he? You're a senator. He couldn't care less about you. He's dealing direct with the president of the United States. What does he want to deal with you for? I hope Bukele just snubs him. He's like, no. In fact, what would be hilarious is if he takes an entire media entourage down with him to El Salvador and he gets stopped at the border. And the El Salvadorian Border Patrol essentially says, I'm sorry, you're not welcome in our country. Bye-bye. Get back on your plane and go home. In front of the entire media entourage. That would be hilarious. But let's see what happens.
And as I said in that letter, if I don't hear from him and Abrego Garcia is not quickly returned, I do intend to go to El Salvador this week to show solidarity with his family. As you indicated, the Trump administration itself has admitted that he was abducted and sent to this prison in error. And
the Trump administration has admitted no such thing. He was not abducted. He was not deported in error. There was a Biden holdover in DOJ that filed an erroneous report saying he was deported in error. But Miller has addressed this for the last 3 days. He was not deported in error. They did not have to uphold the withhold order from the judge because the withhold order specifically did not apply when people were part of terrorist groups. So the withhold order was void based on the evidence that they had on Bukele. So no, he was not deported in error. He was not abducted. None of that. It's absolutely crazy. But the American people are waking up to this nonsense.
He should get his due process.
No, he shouldn't. He's an illegal alien. He already had his due process. He had 2 hearings, 2 deportation orders. Goodbye. Now, our favorite Scott Jennings was once again back on his CNN show owning the Democrats. This is just craziness. Check this out. This guy does not get paid nearly enough. At the same time, I'm surprised he still has a job on CNN, although he may be the only ratings they actually get.
Their public view of the case.
I'm telling you that their view of it is that
public.
It's an El Salvador citizen who was sent back to El Salvador, who was in the country illegally, who, according to some people in his long process, which does include an existing deportation order, believes that he has an affiliation with MS-13. As I said, there's no version of this man's life where he comes back. And let me say one more thing. The people that want him brought back need to understand something. If the president of El Salvador releases him, and we do facilitate his return, when he lands in this country, one of 2 things will happen. He will be arrested, and then he'll either be sent back to El Salvador, where he is now, or some other country I promise you don't want to go to. He's not going to be allowed to come back and live in this country as though he is a U.S. citizen.
That's literally the definition of tyranny, right? So here's what's going to happen. We're going to throw him in jail. No, there's a thing called the rule of law and due process, which has not been followed in this case. And if I have a slightly optimistic take on this, I actually think this is going to come back to bite the Trump administration, because what's going to happen is the next time this goes up the court system, they have absolutely zero credibility to say, don't worry, you can file a habeas petition, you can get your person back. The courts are not going to allow this this to happen. And the idea that the Trump administration has the right of fiat to just decide to ship somebody off to another country, that is fundamentally opposed to everything a constitutional democracy
They have the ability to deport people who have deportation orders. Do they not? He got due process. He
had due process. Exactly. Jennings is 100% right. He had 2 deportation orders. He had due process twice, even when he's not afforded due. Once you are determined that you are here illegally, you are not entitled to further due process. You're here illegally, bye-bye. You're deported. Done. You don't get further rights to due process. You can simply be put on a plane and sent home. This absolute Jay Michelson, who is just nothing more than a shill for the establishment, he can hope all he wants. He's hopium. Hopium is not a solution. It's not a strategy. But this has gotten even worse because now the Democrats are actively calling for members of the Trump administration to be held in contempt and jailed, even though they are not in defiance of any court order. Because the Democrats and the establishment are still trying to gaslight the American public that Trump lost this court case. SCOTUS ruled with Trump 9-0. It was a 9-0 drubbing that the court cannot compel the executive branch to do anything when it comes to foreign policy. Check out the arguments here with Hakeem Jeffries and Jen Psaki, 2 mental midgets going at it on her show.
To intensify the pressure on the Trump administration to comply with the Supreme Court's directive, and the Supreme Court and or the federal district court actually needs to enforce its order. And the vehicles that are available for the court to do that relate to contempt. And that contempt can be directed at a variety of different members of the Trump administration, including but not limited to the Secretary of State and or his or her designees, and the Secretary of Homeland Security and or his or her designees for the court to determine.
It sounds like you're saying you think the court should hold some members of the administration in contempt. Anyone else you want to mention there?
Well, I think what the court needs to do.
Who's Psaki fishing for? What does she want? She wants Trump held in contempt? I mean, she threw a lifeline out there. Please give me a name. I can only imagine that she wants Stephen Miller and Trump because they weren't mentioned specifically by Hakeem Communist Jeffries.
Is to set a deadline as it relates to compliance with the quasi-directive that came down from the Supreme Court related to returning Mr. Garcia, specify that, and then make sure that it happens. And at the same period of time, I think, as you've seen, and there's been some great leadership from Senator Chris Van Hollen, who apparently indicated earlier today that either his constituent is returned or he plans to go to El Salvador himself. And that's exactly the type of action that, as members of Congress, we can do to highlight the injustice, dramatize and amplify it, and force the administration.
That's what they want to do. They want to dramatize and amplify this false story. The story is this person was here illegally. He had 2 hearings. He had 2 deportation orders. He has been determined that he is a member of a transnational terrorist gang, and he was deported lawfully and legally so. He was deported back to his country of origin, which decided at that point to incarcerate him. That's their business, not ours. So if Van Hollen wants to go to El Salvador, if I was the president of El Salvador, I might be polite and say, oh, you want to see the presidential palace? Here you go. You want to have dinner? Fine. Oh, you want to go to the prison? No. It's a national security issue. You can get back on your plane and go home. Or if I wanted to embarrass him, I would have my border patrol meet him at the plane and turn him around with the entire world media watching and say, bye-bye. We don't want your kind here. I mean, it's absolutely ridiculous. But now they're actively calling for Trump and his administration to be held in contempt. The beautiful thing about this is Hakeem Jeffries, all they want is the optics. Because guess what? Even if the judge were to overstep their bounds again and say, I hold Marco Rubio and Pam Bondi in contempt. The first thing, let's say I held Marco Rubio in contempt. Okay, great. Who's gonna enforce your contempt order? It's the DOJ. It's Pam Bondi, who's basically going to tell you to go pound sand. I mean, this whole thing is ridiculous. But now let's talk about the fact that, again, this is another set of gaslighting. They're gaslighting within gaslighting within gaslighting. They start with a story that they have twisted so it's not even true. Then they say, oh, Trump's not complying with this federal order, with this judicial order, which in fact is. Check this out.
Supreme Court ruling, or President Trump and President Bukele made it clear that Abrego Garcia will not be returned to the United States, despite this U.S. Supreme Court ruling saying that Trump had to facilitate his return. So are they just ignoring a U.S. Supreme Court ruling, or is the fact that the ruling was so mushy, in your words,
yes,
giving him an opening?
It's a technical term I learned in law school, Jake. Mushy, look, they're working within the ambiguity that the Supreme Court justices gave them. They did not order the administration to return him to the United States. They said that they need to facilitate this return. They could have said, we order him returned, but they didn't do that. So you heard the Attorney General. She was being very careful in the Oval Office. When she was asked, would you help? She says, of course we'd provide a plane, right? Thereby facilitating whatever El Salvador is doing. The Supreme Court appeared to defer to the executive branch, given that this is an international matter. And you see, yes, it does look a little bit like a semantic game, but they are playing within the bounds of what the Supreme Court ruled. So no,
exactly. They're playing within the bounds of what the Supreme Court ruled. As much as they want to gaslight you and say that this was a win for Abrego Garcia or the left, it is not. I will bring us back to Stephen Miller, who explains this. She is trying to split hairs, and she's actually telling the truth. President Trump and the Trump administration have not violated the Supreme Court order. They have not violated it. In fact, they are well within the bounds and they are complying with it within the law. They're not just painting around the edges. They're 100% in compliance. Listen to Stephen Miller, who talks about this, who talks about the fact that this was a major win for the administration.
Answer that question also, please.
So, as Pam mentioned, there's an illegal alien from El Salvador. So, with respect to you, he's a citizen of El Salvador. So it's very arrogant even for American media to suggest that we would even tell El Salvador how to handle their own citizens as a starting point. As two immigration courts found that he was a member of MS-13. When President Trump declared MS-13 to be a foreign terrorist organization, that meant that he was no longer eligible under federal law, which I'm sure you know, you're very familiar with the INA, that he was no longer eligible for any form of immigration relief in the United States. So we had a deportation order that was valid, which meant that under our law, he's not even allowed to be present in the United States and had to be returned because of the foreign terrorist designation. This issue was then, by a district court judge, completely inverted, and a district court judge tried to tell the administration that they had to kidnap a citizen of El Salvador and fly him back here. That issue was raised to the Supreme Court, and the Supreme Court said the district court order was unlawful, and its main components were reversed 9-0 unanimously, stating clearly that neither Secretary of State nor the President could be compelled by anybody to forcibly retrieve a citizen of El Salvador from El Salvador, who again is a member of MS-13, which, as I'm sure you understand, rapes little girls, murders women, murders children, is engaged in the most barbaric activities in the world, and I can promise you, if he was your neighbor, you would move right away.
So you don't plan to ask for the Supreme Court's asking to... And what was the ruling?
100%. The Supreme Court ruled for Trump. They said that the Trump administration must facilitate his return, meaning that if a sovereign nation, El Salvador, wanted to send him to America, that we would not deny him entry. But once he's here, then the Trump administration will comply with all previous federal deportation orders. Means he will be immediately incarcerated and he will be immediately deported, either back to El Salvador or to another country. But he will not spend a day in the United States. He will not ever be set free again. He has no legal standing here. I just want to highlight, do not be gaslit. Do not be deceived by the establishment propaganda media. They are doing everything they can to change this story, but it cannot be changed. The facts are the facts, and Trump is going to win this again. But right now, not only is he winning with SCOTUS, but he is winning with the court of public opinion. As much as the libs and the establishment propaganda media try to flip this around, the American people see through this. That's why this issue is still 80-20 or 90-10. And Trump is firmly standing with the 90 while the Dems are bending over backwards to stand with the 10. It's going to be amazing to come to the midterms and watch the Democrats get absolutely trounced. Especially, my prediction is the Trump economic plan is going to work, and it's going to start kicking in about 6 months. And when we get to midterm season, the border will be closed, people will be being deported, the economy will be roaring. We might even hopefully we've got peace in Ukraine at that point in time. This could be another clean sweep for the president. I hope so. Hey, if you like this, if you like my new channel, please like, share, subscribe, turn on the notifications, share this with everybody that you know. Help us build the channel as we have now flipped over here. We are monetized. So if anybody wants to join us as a member on YouTube, super chats, all of that is now open. Thanks so much for being here. Really appreciate you coming. Remember, God is good and he is sovereign. It'll all be good in the end. Thanks so much. Until I catch you next time.